Hello, everyone, and welcome to our elective ELR session focused on constitutional research. My name is Professor Ashley Arrington. I'm excited to chat with you today. So let's jump in and start thinking about constitutional research. For our demonstration today, we'll focus primarily on our two major commercial legal research databases, Westlaw and Lexis, and note how to locate relevant constitutional provisions on both our federal and state constitutions on each of those respective platforms. But I also want to call your attention to our free constitutional resources handout, which is hyperlinked here, and I've also uploaded it to our Blackboard page. There are a host of free constitutional resources both for the US Constitution as well as the Texas State Constitution. So I would encourage you to explore those resources and gain some familiarity with each of those free resources and the additional research help that they can provide. So as I noted, we will discuss both the federal and state constitution. So let's take a look at where to locate the US Constitution as well as the Texas Constitution on each of Lexis and Westlaw. I'm going to start on Westlaw Edge. So as you can see, we're on our main page here. As with so many other areas of research, there are multiple ways that we can get to the US or Texas State Constitution on Westlaw. So we'll start thinking about the federal Constitution first. So we could narrow by federal materials first. And we can click into the USCA, which is of course Westlaw's annotated version of the US Code, the US Code Annotated. And you'll see that the Constitution is included within the US Code Annotated on Westlaw. So that's one way that we could get there. Another way that we could get there would be to just simply type in US Constitution, and you'll see that it comes up as a content page. We could go about seeking out the state constitution in the same way. So we could start from state materials and then move specifically into Texas. Since we're now looking for the state constitution, we want to look under Vernon's Texas Rules Annotated as opposed to the US Code Annotated. From there, you could use the index at the top right corner here. So we'll pull into the index, and then we can search for Constitution. We'll see the Constitution of Texas is right here, so we'll pull directly into that. And then from there, we could search for the relevant provisions within the Constitution of Texas. You'll see here under Texas statutes and legislation that the Texas Constitution is included as a direct link. So we could move there. We could browse using the table of contents to find the relevant provisions. Or we could search within the Texas Constitution Annotated. We could also search directly from the main page for the Texas Constitution, which will come up as a source. Or we could move into sources, view all sources. We could search specifically for Texas Constitution, or we could narrow on the left here. So we can narrow by statutes and legislation. And then we can see, as we scroll down, we will find the Texas Constitution here. Of course, research is best done by way of example. So let's look at a hypothetical for our in-class exercise. Here are the facts. We see that our client is Joey Shepard, a Lubbock resident. Since 2019, he has been suspected by the police of illegal drug distribution. Although the police searched his office with a search warrant in the past, they did not find any evidence of such crime. But they don't give up. They felt confident they could find indications of drug distribution in his garbage. As a matter of general routine, the trash truck comes to pick up trash from Shepard's community on Thursday mornings rather. This past Thursday at 4:30 a.m., two police officers drove to Shepard's house and found a black trash bag containing garbage on the curb of the road just outside his door. The two officers loaded this garbage bag into their trunk and drove back to the station. They then went through the garbage bag and found Shepard's letters and bills, along with other household trash inside the bag. They also found a few small plastic bags with residual white powder, which later tested positive as an illegal drug, and as a result, the police arrested Shepard. So Shepard is asserting that there is a law prohibiting police from collecting evidence by stealing his garbage without a warrant. And we're researching the search and seizure procedures in the U.S. Constitution to determine if they apply to Shepard's problem. And we're going to use Westlaw for this particular question. So we've got 3 questions that we'll look at. Our first is use the United States Code Annotated Index to locate the provision of the United States Constitution governing searches and seizures and provide that citation. We'll then use notes of decisions from step 1 to find a note on garbage and look to see under this note which case from the Supreme Court of the U.S. set the rule for this topic. And then thirdly, we'll ask, does a person have a reasonable expectation of privacy with respect to their garbage? How will the aforecited case apply to Shepard's situation? And list the West headnotes that support our answer. So using Westlaw, we could start by searching for the United States Constitution. And we can see that it comes up as a content page. Or we could click into the United States Code Annotated since it is published there. Let's click into the Constitution here first. And we know we're looking for information on searches and seizures, so we could just browse. We see some discussion of searches and seizures, and specifically warrants under Amendment 4. So that's the section that will be relevant for our purposes. Now, another way that we could get here would be to use the USCA index, which is our question is asking us to do just that. Then we could search for search and seizures. We also saw the language warrants was a part of the relevant section, so we could start there if we wanted. So I run a search for that. We can move specifically into warrants and then move in specifically to searches and seizures. And as we see, that points us to the Constitution of the United States, USCA Constitutional Amendment 4. So it takes us to the same place, and the index is designed to help us get there. As you can see, it is lengthy, so we've got several pieces of this here. Looking at our table of contents, we've got our section, our main section, then we've got notes of decisions divided into several different sections. So for our citation, we would just say Constitutional Amendment 4, right? USCA, since we are using Westlaw here. The next piece of the question asks us to use the notes of decisions to help us to find a note relating to garbage. As you can see here, there are no notes of decisions, but if we move into our table of contents, again, we saw that there are several notes of decisions. So we can click into this first section here and we'll look to see if we can find a note specific to garbage. So now we've moved to the first section with notes of decision. So we'll click into those notes of decisions, and also that tells us we can select a heading from the table of contents to view and filter the notes of decisions. So let's browse and look for a section that may be applicable and may have a note regarding garbage. So I see a section here entitled Expectation and Protection of Privacy in Places and Objects. That seems like it might be applicable, so let's look further there. And we see some things being discussed. Expectation with respect to an aircraft, with respect to tracking devices. But let's search for garbage. And we do see a subsection on garbage or trash. So we can click into that note. 562, garbage or trash, also listed as trash cans. And then we see the rule regarding garbage. So this tells us residents of a house sufficiently expose their garbage to the public to defeat their claim to Fourth Amendment protection by placing the garbage in opaque bags at the curbside for pickup by a trash collector. Residents of the house could have no reasonable expectation or privacy in the inculpatory items which they discarded. And the case that's cited for that is California v. Greenwood. So for that second piece of our question, we could cite California v. Greenwood, and our citation is 486 U.S. 35. That third piece of our question asks whether a person has a reasonable right to privacy with respect to garbage, and it asks us to search for a head note that may be relevant. So, or potentially multiple head notes. So, we're looking for searches and seizures, abandoned, surrendered, or disclaimed items. Let's just do Command F and look for garbage. And we see discussion here in Head Note 1. It tells us the Fourth Amendment does not prohibit the warrantless search or seizure of garbage left for collection outside the curtilage of a home. So it looks like that head note would be applicable. Head Note 2, as you can see, also on searches and seizures and also specific to abandoned, surrendered, or disclaimed items. Warrantless search and seizure of garbage bags left at curb outside of house would violate Fourth Amendment only if there were manifestation of a subjective expectation of privacy in the garbage which society would accept as objectively reasonable. If we keep going, we see another head note on the same topic in the same discussion of abandoned, surrendered, or disclaimed items. residents of the house sufficiently exposed their garbage to the public to defeat their claim to Fourth Amendment protection by placing the garbage in opaque bags at the curbside for pickup by a trash collector. Residents of the house could have no reasonable expectation of privacy in the inculpatory items which they discarded. And then finally, if we move down to Head Note 6, also specific to this subtopic, facts that state the Supreme Court had announced a right to privacy and garbage left outside the home for collection did not make expectation of privacy in the garbage reasonable so as to entitle it to Fourth Amendment protection. I'm not seeing any additional head notes with that discussion about garbage or trash, so it looks like we've identified the relevant head notes, with being 1, 2, 4, and 6. So to review once more, with question 1, we used the index to locate the provision governing searches and seizures, which again was the Constitutional Amendment 4. In question 2, from that result, we used the notes of decisions to find a note on garbage. And under that note on garbage, we learned that California v. Greenwood, with a citation of 486 U.S. 35, is the case from the Supreme Court of the United States that helped to set the rule for that topic. And then thirdly, does a person have a reasonable expectation of privacy with respect to their garbage? How will the aforecited case apply to Shepard's situation? List the West head notes that support your answer. So our answer would be no, right? A person does not have a reasonable expectation of privacy with respect to their garbage. And we use that case to evaluate the head notes that were applicable, which included head notes 1, 2, 4, and 6. As a reminder, these are just 2 databases, right? We've looked at Westlaw and Lexis for both the state and federal constitutions, and we've looked at a few different ways of finding the relevant provisions from those databases. But don't forget that you have a number of free and open access resources available to you. So I encourage you to review that handout shown here and explore some of the tools that are available per these free databases.